Okay, welcome all to the Black Column Podcast. I'm your host, Jabia, aka the Crew Philosopher. Shannon is back in the building.
What am I? Are you going to introduce me as like your partner, co-host, something like that? Because you're
So
just
this is a very interesting question.
So I don't know.
This is a very interesting question.
Tell everyone, please.
I didn't want to put anything on you that you didn't want to accept. So I was like, okay, well, because I consider you to be my co-host, but
you didn't want to put a label on it, Jabia, just like all men, right?
Well, for you, not for me, for you. I don't want to offend you. That's why.
It's okay. You know, I'm here. Label me as your equal.
Yes, this is my co-host, Shannon. How you doing, Shannon?
Yay. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing very well.
I was just wondering, because I didn't know what to tell people when I was telling people about this podcast. I was like, I'm a co-host? ? I don't know. He's never introduced me as that.
I didn't want to make it weird. I don't want see this is the disconnect men and women have all the time. So I'm glad we have finally cleared that Shannon is my co-host, who I love a lot. She helped me with the setup quite a bit, which is it's a different experience because I'm used to doing everything myself, and it drags you down mentally. And here's how much I care about Shannon.
Man, they say.
Huh?
There's a great woman behind every man, they say. It's true.
I mean, I reject that statement, but all right, here's how much I respect Shannon. I'm going to miss like the first half hour of a finals NBA game that I've been looking forward to since Friday. But
you should have told me. We could have made it. We could have recorded earlier in the day if you wanted to.
No. I value this time a lot. And I'm looking forward to this topic here. So for today's show, me and Shannon will be talking about privilege.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So Shannon made me take this test from Buzzfeed that was titled, hold on. I think the title of it was, How Privileged Are You?
Yeah, how privileged are you? And
so there's basically this test that you take with quite a few questions. It was like, what, 30 questions, something like that?
Yeah, something like that. There was a good amount, yeah.
Yeah, it took me, I think, 10 minutes to answer all of these questions, but it was very
and
interesting.
And you have to read the questions, too, because it flips back and forth between I am this or I have never done this. So you really have to, like, make sure you read it.
Yes,
sure
pay attention. Yes.
Correctly.
So before we get into the test, our scores, my beef with the questions, we should define what privilege is to us, and then we should read what the actual definition of privilege is. So, yes, Shannon, what is privilege to you?
Privilege to me is basically being able to move through any facet of life with ease, and basically, like, you know what I mean? Just like being able to move through life easily without like any problems, I guess, from society or as a whole.
So to you, being privileged is having the ability to move through the world without any added hurdles?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. For me, privilege, this is one of my gripes with the entire BuzzFeed article, right? So my definition of privilege is having an advantage that other human beings innately don't possess.
Yes. That's kind of like what I said, kind of, but not really.
Yes, so that's my definition. Now, when I went to Google and I Googled privilege, here's what came out from the Google dictionary. Privilege, a special right, advantage, or immunity granted or available only to a particular person or group. And for the example they use, it's education is a right, not a privilege.
Okay. I read a long article it was about white privilege, so I guess that's different. But yeah.
White privilege is one of the privileges, but
it's one of them.
Yes, it's one of the privileges. No, I'm sure some white people will get mad at us as well. And I think once we get deeper into this conversation, we'll begin to look into like the problems with using the word like privilege. Because there are some problems with it, but I want to get into my score first. So I took Shannon's test.
It's not my test. You took BuzzFeed's test that I told you about.
I took BuzzFeed's test that Shannon told me to take, and I'm going to read my grade.
Okay. Wait, I just want to point out, I think Jabia's grade is higher than mine. I don't know if I said that before we started recording, but I just want to say it before you say it.
Yeah, so she thinks my grade is higher than hers. Yeah. I think my grade is probably higher than hers as well, though I think really Shannon is probably more privileged than I am. But we're gonna get into this. So my grade was I got it says you live with 65 out of 100 points of privilege.
Wait, Jabia, can we pick up real quick? I'll be right back because there are too many people. Can you hear that?
I can't hear anything.
Hold on.
I didn't hear anything.
Okay. There was a lot of whispering going on outside my door. I just wanted to make sure that you weren't picking that up.
Oh, no,
okay.
no. Yeah, so I got a 65 out of 100 for my privilege score.
Okay.
What was yours?
I also got a 65 out of 100.
You know what I mean? So, okay, so the fact that me and you got the exact same score probably tells you something is afoot, right? I am a black man. You are a black woman. If anything, society would say probably that you have more hurdles than I do. Though,
yes,
I would disagree with that 100% because I think we underrate, like, pretty privilege and, vagina privilege, things like that.
Well, there are all different types of privilege and different groups of people benefit from different types of privilege. So yes, but you being a man gives you a little bit more privilege than me, but maybe
how so, Shannon? How so? I want to hear it. No, how does me being a black man in America?
But that's the thing. That's the thing. So it's like you're a man, so maybe you have a little bit more privilege, but you're also a black man. So maybe that maybe it goes like this, like the scales a little bit. I feel like because it's like it's like a tipping scale.
All right, so tell me what advantages that I, as a man, have. No, tell me what privileges I have as a man, Shannon. I need to hear this conversation. Go ahead.
I guess it's different. Maybe you're a black man, so I guess maybe it doesn't even count. But I feel like white men, because they're men, sit at the very top of the privilege pool. They're up there, and then actually, probably for black men, I don't know. I don't think you might not have any more advantages than I do. Actually, when you put it that way, I don't really know. But I know that white men. I just know that white cisgendered men sit at the very top of the privilege pool.
Okay, so tell me what are their privileges?
What are their privileges? They're men. Yeah. They're white.
Wait, you're giving me descriptions of what they are. I'm asking you, what privileges do they get for being male, and what privileges do they get for being white?
In terms of workplace, there's been many studies that prove that white men earn more than white women of color, anything like that.
So you're saying that there are studies that show that white men who work the exact same job for the exact same hours as a woman, they make more because they are white and male?
Well, I'm just saying that that's a study. I'm not saying, well, that's what the study suggests. I'm not saying it's because they're a white male. I'm just saying that's what certain studies have pointed to.
So we are 8 minutes in, and already, Shannon, your privilege argument is falling apart. And I have to say,
what do you mean?
Because I keep asking you to give me privileges, and you can't give me anything.
I'm sorry. What do you mean? I said one. I said they get paid more.
Wait. So once again, are you saying that? Here's what I'm asking, Shannon. You have a job, right?
Yes.
Are you saying that a white man who works the exact same job as you and gets the exact same hours as you, are you saying that you have evidence that he makes more than you?
There have been studies that show that. I'm not saying that I know that in my day-to-day life. I'm just going off of the studies that have come out.
Here's the problem with the pay gap studies. I've seen those, and they're horrible, Shannon. Here's why. The pay gap that they talk about, they take all the money that men make and compare it to all of the money that women make, that women make. And then they say that men make more than women. But that's not a good way to discuss pay gap, because if men are going into fields that pay more money and women are going into fields that pay less money overall, there's going to be a pay gap amongst between men and women.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean that a man doing the same job, working the same amount of hours, is getting paid more money.
But what if they are getting paid more money?
Then I'm asking you for the proof.
Oh, I don't have any concrete proof in my own life. I don't know what my male coworkers are making just because I don't ask that. I'm just going strictly based off of.
I know you're going strictly based off of hearsay. But here's the thing, Shannon.
Mhm.
So this right here gets into my first issue with the privilege discussion. Number one,
Mhm.
people throw the word privilege around, and often when I interrogate them, like I did my friend Shannon here, they don't really give me a clear, concise answer. Now, I have examples of
Mhm.
privilege. Now, do I believe white privilege is real? Yes. But so if someone asks me what is white privilege, I always say white privilege to me is, excuse me, the ability to be judged as an individual.
Well, yes.
I
Instead of
think,
based off of certain things about you, you're just judged
yeah. So
humanly.
like, I feel like black people disproportionately are judged as a collective, and white people are judged more so as individuals. So, it doesn't matter
Yes.
how often, some white dude shoots up a school or something. It doesn't, society doesn't view the individual white man in a negative light. The same way if there's black crime around,
Mhm.
it's almost like my stock in, people's minds goes down. And so
Yes.
that's one example I think of white privilege. Now,
Yes.
one example of male privilege I think is the ability to move, about the world without being explicitly objectified in the street. So
That's a good
I,
one. That's a good
yeah,
one.
so
Yeah.
I can go to the store, go, and I don't really have to worry about
Mhm.
nobody saying, "Hey, yo, ma," trying to get my attention,
Yep.
whispering at me, catcalling me. I can move through the world without any of those things. That
That is a
that
good one.
that is something
Yep.
that men have that women don't have. But here's the thing, though. Privilege to me, if we're going to say that men have more privilege than women, right, as a general statement, the reason why I have a problem with it, it doesn't examine the privileges that women have or some women have, which is
That is true. I mean, that's why I said it's like a tipping scale. So like, there are some things probably that men have more of an advantage in life, and there are some things that women have more of an advantage in life. So it is like a
a scale.
teetering square. Yeah.
But here's the thing, though. So if that's the case, are we, doing a disservice by having this conversation through the lens of privileges? If we're going to say that each individual person has, certain pros and certain cons about being them, are we missing the boat by framing everything through the lens of privilege? Because I see it happen all the time, male privilege, white male privilege, this, that. But people don't acknowledge that they themselves have certain advantages to being them, and they themselves have certain disadvantages of being them.
That's true. Well, the many sub privileges that there are, the biggest privilege that I really even consider when I think of privilege is racial privilege. I think that that's the biggest one, really, that has the most impact. All these other things, these other privileges, male privilege, all this other stuff, they're, I mean, I'm sure that they exist, but when I mainly think of privilege,
You think
the
of white male
I
privilege.
think of racial privilege first.
And do you think they themselves would think that they are privileged?
White people?
Yeah.
I have there are some white people that I've met that acknowledge that they have a certain amount of privilege. And then there are some people that don't believe that privilege exists and that they are completely ignorant to that fact. I've seen both.
Would you consider a trailer trash redneck white person a privileged white person? I'm asking.
So, but that's the thing. So I consider them racially in the race privilege, probably
Okay.
yes, because they're white.
Okay.
But in other aspects, no. Uh Financial privilege, I probably have an advantage over a white trailer trash person. But
Mm-hmm.
again, race privilege, because they're white, it kind of like that's what I'm saying. It gets kind of complicated when you have all these other facets. So it's just like it's kind of like a puzzle where it's like, yes, you're a white person, but I probably can have an advantage of you in other areas
Mm-hmm.
if you're like white trailered person.
Question, Shannon.
But you know,
How confident are you in your? Do you still? So after now we're 15 minutes in. Are you still confident in your privilege belief?
wait, what privilege belief? I didn't understand which privilege belief.
No, you believe that there are there's a hierarchy in America, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm asking, do you still believe in this hierarchy?
I believe in a racial, I believe, not racial, I believe in a privilege hierarchy when it comes to race. I think that's the biggest one. Everything else is like a sliding scale and it's kind of complicated, but I don't think that those areas of privilege stand probably as strong as the umbrella of racial privilege. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay,
If that
fair
makes
enough.
sense.
Fair enough.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we view the world too much in these, like, we have to put people in these categories. And to me, I think it's actually missing the bigger issue, because whenever people speak about privileges, I think what they're trying to do, they are trying to make the world a more just and even place, right?
Mm-hmm.
For the most part, I think their intentions are good.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to make the world equal for, as equal as possible is a good uh, thing to be trying to do. The problem is, number one, people aren't equal.
Mm-hmm.
People have certain capabilities that other people don't have. It's
Yep.
just it's the fact of life. There's nothing you can really do about it. Now, you also increase the likelihood that you overlook certain people if you only look at individuals in these little boxes, right? So
Mm-hmm.
when I present to you with the, like, okay, well, it's like a trailer trash redneck, as privileged as you are, and you say, well, I mean, he's white, but he is, trailer trash, so, and I'm not, so I'm, I might have more advantages than they are, and really, if you look at each individual person the way I think we should strive to, but I understand how that's more complicated, because to have certain conversations, you have to speak in generalizations. It's just the truth of the matter. But I think we should strive to speak about people from an individual level, because
Of course.
we all have various pros and cons about us, and I don't think we should feel bad about it.
No, I mean, of course, that is how people should look at individuals, but of course, like the society as a whole does not view people that way. But of course, that is the way that they should be viewing individuals. But unfortunately, it's not the way the world works.
Okay. Also, question: How how is being heterosexual a privilege when the overwhelming majority of people in the world are heterosexual?
Oh, say I was trying to figure out what issues of the quiz you had a problem with, so I figured that
That's one of them.
maybe that was one of them. I guess it's just I'm just gonna throw out a guess and say that it's because of the barriers probably and the hurt. I mean, trans, gay, the LGBTQ community has to go over their own hurdles. They have a lot of barriers that they have to
Agree.
jump through also. So I just think that I mean, it's a privilege to be, they consider it a privilege to be heterosexual because you don't have to go through certain, like you don't have the same troubles maybe that as someone in the LGBTQ community, especially in the trans community. They have, that society not seeing them basically as the genders that they identify as, so they have their own hurdles that they have to move through in various aspects of life. And
True.
as a hetero person, you don't have to worry about any of that. You know what I
No,
mean?
I agree with
So
you.
I mean, I guess it is a privilege in a way. Mhm.
No, I agree with you, Shannon. But here's the thing: we just said that damn near everyone has their own hurdles that they have to deal with. So
That's what,
what?
yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. So what makes, and so if we're having a conversation about privilege, right? If we
Mhm.
are agreeing that every person or group of people have their own hurdles that they have to deal with, then can you really have a privilege hierarchy if everyone has their own, you know, stuff to deal with?
Probably not. Now that you're saying that, probably not, because everything is a sliding ladder. So like a sliding scale. Sorry. So probably not. Probably not, because
I
the more you
can't.
say it, the more it doesn't really make sense. You're right.
No, I was gonna say I can't sleep my way to the top, right?
Hmm.
I can't. I mean, other than your integrity, Shannon, you probably could. All right. Now you choose not to because you have integrity and you want to be judged
False.
on
Yeah.
your merit.
Hmm.
Well, moral is, I'm not going to use moral, because is a woman who sleeps her way to the top immoral?
I feel like moral and integrity kind of go hand in hand, though. So if you said that I have integrity, that also has to do
Well, no, like
with
meaning
my
you,
moral value.
you want to be judged based on the merit of your work.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And so if you got to the top by sleeping your way to the top, you probably wouldn't feel that satisfied with yourself.
Nope.
Yeah. But if a woman did choose to sleep her way to the top, is she
I mean, yeah. Okay.
is she immoral, or is she using one of the tools in her tool belt that she was born with, attractiveness and being a woman? So I'm gonna use it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Is it any different than a parent using their influence to get their child into Harvard?
No, it's not. You're right.
You see what I'm saying? But if you ask most people in society, they would consider the woman who's attractive, who slept her way to the top, they would consider her to be oppressed, versus me as a man who I don't have that ability. They would consider me to be this male privileged guy. But I can't
Mm-hmm.
get to the top unless I'm competent.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
And so, yeah, you know, the BuzzFeed thing annoyed me. Here's another one that annoyed me, by the way. It's I don't have any student loans. That was one of the questions.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
yeah. They're trying to make too many things into a category of privilege. Like, yeah, if you don't have any student loans, like, good for you. I don't think that you necessarily have more privilege over me because you don't have student loans. You know what I mean? That was kind of that was an issue. I took issue with that question too.
But here's the thing, though, Shannon. You can view, once you put on the privilege glasses, Shannon, you can view almost anything through those lenses, right? For example, if you're an American, you are a privileged person compared to other places in the world.
Yes.
Right. So if you're a homeless person in America, you still might be higher on the quote unquote privilege ladder than somebody in a, you know, third world country or a war torn country. And so I don't think it's effective to view the world that way.
It's not. It's not. It's not.
Yeah. You know, so the BuzzFeed thing, the more questions that I kept answering, I was like some of this is kind of people fall on misfortune sometimes. That happens. It doesn't mean because I haven't fallen on these misfortunes that I am a privileged person in the way we discuss privilege. Now, it means that I should be thankful because I've avoided that misfortune. And, you know, I believe most of us are pretty much like 2 or 3 events away from being the people that are below us, right? So, like, you know, I think it's like the average American family only has like $400 in savings or something crazy like that. And so we're all steps away from being homeless or losing a limb, right? You can get hit by a car. You can, you know, you go walking through the city, a piece of brick can fall from a building. Anything can happen to you that will take you from being this able-bodied person to being this person with a disability. Trust me, I know. But to view that as because these things haven't happened to me, I am therefore privileged, I think that's insane to me.
No, I just think it makes you more fortunate in the moment. Yes, you're right. But it doesn't make you necessarily more privileged than an individual.
Okay. Now let's take this conversation somewhere else. Should you strive to make the world a place where your privileges don't work for you? So, for example, if you're white, if you're white, and you know, there's some studies that come out and say that, you know, that white people are more likely to, I don't know, like pass interviews because of their whiteness. Should you then, as a white person, be working to try to make a world a place where your privileges don't work for you?
I mean, theoretically speaking, yes.
Okay.
But people of the world don't think that way and will not do that because
are you?
Again, especially not here, because again, we are in a very arrogant me culture. And I feel like some people ride the white. I feel like some white individuals ride the coattails of their privilege, and they don't really care that this hierarchy, that the racial privilege exists. They don't care. They know that it's there, and they're just gonna ride that, take that wherever they can take it. And then there are some that acknowledge it, but I don't know if I don't know if they're going to be willing to do anything about it. You know what I mean? Should they?
Okay.
Of course they should. But I don't know. I don't think that that's the society we live in.
Well, you said of course. You said of course, but I don't know if it is of course, right? Meaning, so you are an attractive woman. Whether you know it or not, some doors have opened for you, Shannon, because you are attractive.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
okay,
would you create a society where those doors never open for you?
Is it not it's I don't know. Is it a question of creating a society where those doors are open for me, or is it a question of making sure that doors can equally be open for everyone, whether they're attractive or not?
That, but no, because here's the thing: how can you make a society where doors open for attractive people, unattractive people, without closing doors to attractive people? Like, so for example, if you wanted to be on TV, you can get on TV because your face doesn't scare little children. But,
oh my God.
but we all know that there has to be people out there that are talented enough to do news or be a sports moderator, or like every time you watch these these are sports debate shows, there's like two dudes and the super hot chick in the middle. Now, she has to know that she's there because she's hot. I hope she doesn't believe she's there because of her great football or basketball knowledge. And I'm not saying she doesn't have it, Shannon, but you don't talk. So even if you did have this knowledge, I don't know it. So you have to know, I would think you are self-aware enough to know that you're there getting this good salary because your company is objectifying you. Would that woman want to take that away?
No, you're right. She
Is she a bad person for not wanting to take that away?
No. This is just a societal norm. It's a societal norm. And I just feel like that's just the way the world is. Would it be great if everyone had equal opportunities in terms of that? Yes. But it's just not the way that the world is. So I guess it's a cruel thing that we have to come to live with.
You sound defeated, Shannon.
I'm not defeated. It's true. It's just, and it's not a great thing, but it's something that's there.
Well, look, privilege is a concept that, I'm glad we're discussing it. The concept of it, the application of it. I think it's important that we have this conversation. But I think really, if the people that are constantly out there tweeting about privilege or, out there in protests screaming about it, if they really sat down to have the conversation that we are having, I think they would realize the limitations of the fight that they're having, because many of them are probably doing well in life because of their privileges, but no one wants to look in the mirror. Nobody wants to, because here's why. No one wants to hear, and this is the biggest problem with the privilege conversation, is that no one wants to hear that they are where they are because of something that didn't have to do with their work ethic. So no woman wants to hear that she's there because she's attractive. No man wants to hear that he's there because he has a penis. No white person wants to hear that they got there because they're white. No black person wants to hear that they got there because they feel some minority quota. No one wants to hear that. Nobody wants to hear that, even though it's probably true for all of us in some way, shape, or form. I've probably gotten some jobs because I was black, and they wanted to fill some minority quota because you get like some extra money if you got X amount of black people.
The thing is, like, I can't even, and usually, like, I try to argue your points, but the thing is, like, I can't even argue your points because you're correct. You're absolutely correct.
I'm just saying, like, and it's like, when I want to take that away, now here's the thing. To me, for example, affirmative action, I would want to get rid of that because it is a law on the books that is saying, let's go out of our way to uplift individuals based off of their racial identity and keep other people's out. I think that's wrong. But something like attractiveness privilege or pretty privilege, I mean, is there really a way to combat that?
No, there's not.
I mean, outside of making, I don't know, all applications and hirings anonymous, meaning you submit your resume, there's no interview, so the person only has your resume to go off of. I
or
guess
just a
you could do
phone
that.
interview, not like a visual interview. Yeah.
Or a phone in, but even then, it's going to lead to some bias because everyone don't got this voice that I got, this sexy deep voice. What if you got an annoying voice, Shannon? You're going to get discriminated against. And so,
yeah,
all I can tell people is, as much as possible, you should try to make what you naturally have work for you as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean that we can't try to make the world a more even playing field. I believe we should, but I also think we should be knowledgeable to, okay, there's only but so much I can do to I don't know, flip this system on its head, because we all have privileges. There are too many privileges to count.
Yeah, we all
I'm
do
tall.
have privileges. Yeah.
I'm tall. I'm sure somebody used that as a privilege, though I would contend that it makes it harder for me to buy certain clothes.
Yes.
I wear size 50. I wear size 14, 15 in shoes. Mm-hmm. I could never walk into a Foot Locker and buy something. Plus, my clothes are more expensive because it costs more to make my clothes and shoes, right? The what is it called? The pink tax, the
pink tax, yeah.
Yeah, how women's products cost more money than men do. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm sure it also has to do with the fact that you guys are willing to pay it, so they tax you more.
Yeah,
but
that is the argument. That is the argument.
But so we all have these privileges, and we should strive to make the world a more equal place. But I think we all have to take a step back and say, hey, you know what? I'm always going to have a leg up or a leg down compared to somebody else for something that has nothing to do with me. If I was sexy, I mean, the world would be mine. My personality, and give me young Denzel's face. What?
Okay, so I understand how you feel about all these minor privilege issues, but do you feel that way about race privilege as well? Or do you have a different take on that?
Okay, so race, like I said, racial privilege, I acknowledge that white people are allowed to move in the world as individuals versus I think Black Americans are aren't allowed to walk through the world that way. Though a white person might say that's not true in today's society, right? Like, we're always talking about white male privilege, and we're like, do you think a white person today is viewed positively?
No, not now, not in today's climate, because of everything going on, because of all the attention surrounding now the issues of privilege in this country. But probably still yes, in terms of like where it matters. But I would say socially, no, not really.
Okay, yeah. So, and I think I agree with you there, for the most part. And so, okay, so as far as racial privileges, I believe that Black people are not allowed to be individuals. Though somebody might say that's self-inflicted, because we kind of do group ourselves a lot.
How so?
Amongst each other. For example, remember me you talked about how Black people just off the rip, when they find out that you're a conservative or a Republican, they start calling you coon and sell out and stuff. And, we vote for Democrats at like a 90% clip. Like, if you talk a particular type of way, you get called Oreo, or you're trying to talk like a white person. So we treat ourselves as a group and a collective all the time. And so some might argue that maybe the fact that we're not allowed to be viewed as individuals like white people, some might say that is self-inflicted to a certain degree. We don't allow ourselves to be treated like individuals. But I don't buy the argument. I think it is pretty much kind of a racialized thing where Black people take the sins of other Black people and are judged for it. I think racial privilege, I do think this society has conditioned Americans to view Black people as more dangerous, as more violent. And notice I said Americans. I didn't say this country has conditioned white people, because some certain Black people view Black people as more dangerous, more violent as well.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So I do think there are racial privileges when you talk about a macro thing, but I think the pushback you get from white people, especially like conservatives, is that none of that has anything to do with my individual life. So you're talking all this stuff about white privilege, but my individual life as a white man sucks.
Yes, individually, maybe. Yes.
Yeah, but if his individual life sucks, then who cares about all of this macro stuff?
Yes, as a whole, it matters, but I understand the breakdown. I understand what you're trying to say in terms of the breakdown of individuals.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, how much work you think I'm doing to dismantle a system when my life sucks? And so y'all out here saying that I'm privileged and this and that, and I work a shit job like anybody else. I go home, buy beer and cigarettes like anybody else. Like another thing that led to this privilege stuff, the media, because we don't see the white equivalent of lower class Blacks. Here's what I mean. If you grew up in a lower class or poor neighborhood, Black neighborhood, you see poor, lower middle class Black people. And so you see more violence, you see more fatherlessness, more gangs. There's a liquor store in every corner. You see all those things.
Yep.
And the only time you interact with white people, is usually at the workplace.
Yep.
At the schools. And law enforcement. So every place that you encounter whiteness, it's people in positions of power over your life. The teacher has power over your children. The police have power over you. And I said one other example, but I can't remember right now. Law enforcement, teachers, whatever. You understand my point. But most white people are not those people. Most white people are not the white people that you see in Midtown, Wall Street. Those are the exception. Like Donald Trump won the presidency in 2016 mainly off of the strength of non-college educated whites, both male and female. And so a lot of white Americans, they live like we do. Slight differences, more trailer parks, poor trailer parks, but the same fatherlessness, low paying jobs, crime through the woo-ha, drug use. You see all this opioid addiction in this country. And so
yes,
we really live like the same life. It's just that the media makes it seem as if white people overwhelmingly are these successful group of individuals. No, they're not. Those are the exception. They are struggling.
Yeah, but like I'm not thinking of it in terms of who's struggling more. I'm just thinking of it in terms of we might both live the same crappy life. I might go home to my shitty apartment, and this white person might go home to their shitty apartment, and they're both living miserable lives. But if we both go to the same job interview, chances are they'll probably be leaning more towards the white individual in that sense.
Why do you believe that? Why do you believe that?
Just because of the way that it's always been, just because that's the way that it usually, where it depends on the workplace, to be quite honest with you. But if I'm going for a job at a big corporate company, and the person doing the interviewing, the hiring happens to be white, and I'm going, like, it's me and this white man, statistics show that they're going to be more leaning towards the white candidate. And that's really the example that I'm trying to give, not on an individual basis.
I get it.
Just like on a wider scale.
I think what I'm struggling with, Shannon, is maybe the privilege discussion is kind of just 10, 20 years too late, right? So maybe
Mhm.
the privilege discussion was a lot more relevant 1980s, 1970s, 60s than it is now, right? Like if no, the real privilege, class.
Mhm.
Class gives you everything. Better neighborhoods, better schools, better healthcare. Uh, like you can remove yourself from most of the ills of society in America if you make a certain amount of money. And so maybe the class privilege is the real one, though it's ironically it's the least discussed. Like I feel like we talk
But
more
I
about
feel like even in class privilege though, you still have a racial privilege breakdown, because how many times have you heard about, or how many times have you heard about, like, say you have a black man who's wealthy
Mhm.
driving a nice car, and he gets pulled over by the cops, and the cops like asking like, whose car is this? Like, so even if you're if you're in the upper class and you're a black individual, like, chances are probably some point in your life you'll probably still get questioned because of your skin color. You know what I mean? So I
that
just
is
feel like
true.
racial privilege is kind of like it's a kind of like an overarching umbrella for everything. That's
So you
that's
think
how I feel about it.
okay, and I think it's the opposite. I think class is the umbrella, and race is kind of this thing that is used to keep. Because I keep talking. I think race is the thing that is used by the elite to keep the people that are starving for more opportunities, more money, keep them at each other's throats while the elite continue to do what they do. That's what I believe is going on in this country.
Mm.
I believe it is significantly more of a class issue than it is a racial issue. I believe that. But to your point about the black man with the nice job who buys the nice car in the wrong neighborhood getting pulled over, yeah, I have heard those stories, and so that is an example of racial privilege where a white person in that same scenario might not get pulled over versus
Mm.
a black man in that situation is going to get pulled over. Totally agree. I'm not saying that racial that there isn't any privileges that pertain to race.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that. What I'm saying though is as we have these conversations, Shannon, like we've had, I think we can both admit that it is significantly more complicated than it's presented when it's
Oh,
discussed on
absolutely.
social media or I don't know in like rallies and speeches. It's not as clear as oh you white, you privileged, and I'm black, I'm oppressed.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not buying that. Let me examine your lives a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that test really crystallized it because, like for example, I don't rely on public transportation. Having a car is a privilege.
I mean, and having a car is a privilege. I don't think that you should consider it like, oh, I am privileged because I have a car. I just think that having a car is a privilege because not everyone can afford a car, and then people have to rely on public transportation. So if I can afford a car, I consider that to be a privilege, but I don't consider myself to be more privileged than someone else. I just consider having a car to be if that does what I'm saying make sense?
I think you're saying that if you have a car, it is it can be viewed as an example of your wealth. So if you have more means than somebody else, then yeah, you are a privileged person, right? Is that what
But
you're saying?
but I mean, kind of. I'm just saying that, like, I don't think that I am a privileged individual because I have a car. I
Mm-hmm.
just think that it is a privilege to have a car because not everyone can afford one. But I just don't think that that puts me in like a certain branch above somebody.
Yeah,
I just think that, like, I'm fortunate enough to have a car, but I don't think that I am above somebody because I have a car
I
versus
get
somebody
it.
who doesn't.
I get it. Very interesting conversation. Yeah, like to me, I just think it is in our best interest, all of us. It
Mm-hmm.
is in our best interest, Shannon, to as much as possible have conversations from like the ground up instead of from top to bottom.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, because like I said, you miss over so many people who may need help, whose lives you can enrich. You might look past them because they don't check the box of what you've been told privilege looks like. or underprivileged looks like. And so you might overlook, poor whites somewhere who could use your help, and just focus on, people of color. But I mean, the poor whites need as much help as the people of color. If they're all poor, you just ain't gonna help poor white people because they're white. Now you're a racist. That's what that makes you now. Now you're a racist. So
I know that people view privilege I know that some people view it individually, but I view racial privilege more as a whole than breaking it down individually by person. I just view it as a whole, like a system in general, about how just a group of white people might have more advantages overall, not individually, just overall, than African Americans. But I'm not judging anyone individually because I know that it breaks down more individually. But I'm just saying how society looks at race and white people and Black people as a whole, I think.
So where does okay? So you said a white and Black. Okay, so are Asian Americans closest to
people
Black?
Of color, not even Black people, people of color in general.
So you believe Asian Americans will fall under the category of people that are less privileged, more privileged?
I don't know. Honestly, I don't really I don't really know about that. I don't know, because I know that I'm not even gonna get into this, actually. I'm not even gonna get into that.
See, I brought up Asians specifically because Asians out earn white people in America.
Yeah, I know.
By far, it's not even close.
Yeah.
It's one of the things that is the least discussed, but to me, it's the most interesting of how there is this small minority group that is out earning like 60 to 70% of Americans.
No, it's true. It's true.
And so that's what I mean. That's what I mean when I say that the privilege conversation makes me iffy, because I'm like, I mean, how do you explain that, right? Like if there is this white privilege thing in America, so they just allowed the Asians to be more successful than they are.
I mean,
see what I mean?
Like, I mean, I still believe it's there, and I firmly believe that it is still there. But that is an interesting point.
Yeah. Look, all I think we need to do is maybe use another word, Shannon. Maybe instead of privilege is just because you are at just because you're at a disadvantage doesn't necessarily innately mean that I am at an advantage. Does that make sense? For example, somebody that has no legs is clearly a disadvantaged person. If we are racing somewhere on foot, so then I am someone who has legs. You don't.
Yes.
It's harder for you to run, probably.
Yes.
Especially if you don't have money for fake legs. But just because you don't have legs doesn't mean that I am necessarily privileged because I have legs. If most people have legs,
yeah.
you see what I'm trying to say? Like yeah. If most of us have something, maybe that should be removed from the privilege, underprivileged conversation, and we should just say, let's help individuals who don't have what the majority of people do have. So disabilities, of course, finances, of course. Like you hear the stat about how the lower middle class in this country, I mean, their wages haven't improved that much since like the 1950s versus the upper class has, right? Those are actually things worth discussing. Those are actual privileges, I think. But when we get to this micromanagement like BuzzFeed did, where we just ask random questions, and if it's a yes or a no, okay, then you're more privileged. Oh no, you're less privileged.
Yeah, it was a little.
Yeah,
it was a little much. Honestly,
can you run?
BuzzFeed quiz, but again, it's a BuzzFeed quiz, so like.
No, I get it. But people feel that way. It's like, oh, can you run to the store? Then you are privileged. I'm like, no, I'm not. I have what most people have, which are legs. People who don't have legs, they are underprivileged. But it doesn't necessarily has to mean that I am privileged. It could just mean that this person is underprivileged, and we should try to do something so that people who end up in scenarios like him or her can have a better chance at being at the starting line like the rest of us. And so I think that's kind of a perfect place to make this analogy that what we should be striving for is to, as much as possible, as human beings, make it so that we all can start as close to the start line as possible.
Yes.
Now, once people run, somebody's gonna be faster than somebody else, right? And so that's where, like, I don't really want equity. I want equality. Equality of opportunity. That's what I want for every individual in the world.
Yeah.
Equal outcome. To me, I don't think that can ever be something that's achieved without holding somebody back.
I agree with you also. I agree.
Yeah. So, that's what I have to say about this.
Wow. What a yes. I mean, I can't disagree with you on a majority of your arguments. It's all
yeah.
Most of your points were correct. Yes.
Yeah, I was very annoyed by this BuzzFeed thing, as you can clearly see. I was very irked. As soon as the first couple of questions.
I know.
Now, you know what you do? Let's read them for the audience.
Oh, yes.
Okay. So the first one is, I'm white. I think that's a fair question to ask.
See, that's the first one.
Yes. I have never been
fair because the racial privilege.
Yes. I have never been discriminated against because of my skin color. Now, that's a very nuanced question, because how would I know? I don't think I've ever been discriminated against because of my skin color.
That's I mean, some people wouldn't know, but some people could know. So
okay. I have never been the only person of my race in a room. Now, that is pretty damning, because that's happened to me at least like 10 times.
That's happened to me. I went to a predominantly white college, so that has happened to me as well.
Though, here's the rebuttal. You chose to go there, Shannon. You could have went to HBCU.
I could have went to HBCUs, but maybe I couldn't have. What if I didn't get accepted into any HBCUs?
Did you apply?
No, but I'm just saying. But what if I did apply and I didn't get into any, and I had no choice but to go to the predominantly white institution?
But you didn't apply, so how would you know?
Okay, but I'm just saying. What if I did? But
the ancestors shake their head. All right. I have never been mocked for my accent. Okay, fair enough. I kind of get what this question is leading to. People that have accents might be discriminated against. I've never been told I am attractive, quote, for my race. I've never been told that, but I have heard from Black women that they have. So
I've been told that. Yes.
That you're pretty for a black girl?
Yes.
Who told you that? A black man?
No, someone in high school told me that. I will not say their names.
Who told you that?
But I cannot say it on here.
Who said that to you?
I can't say it. I'll tell you when you're not recording anymore.
I have never been a victim of violence because of my race.
I haven't been.
Yeah. I have never been called a racial slur. I have never been called.
But that's the thing. Like, have you never been called a racial slur by somebody outside of your race? Because
no,
that's what I'm saying. Okay, cool.
Have you?
No, not to my face. So I don't know.
Yeah, no. Yeah. I have never been told I sound white. Now I know for a fact you have definitely been told that, Shannon.
Yes, I have been all my life. I've been called an Oreo. Yes, I have.
A stranger has never asked to touch my hair or asked if it is real. That has never happened to me. I've heard from Black women that
happened to me.
Really?
Yes, it has. I was in I was in Plattsburgh. This was like a couple years ago. I was in Plattsburgh, and a white individual came up to me, and he was like, "Oh, I love your hair. I love your hair. Can I touch it?" Like, and I was like, "No." He was like, "Oh." He was like, "Oh, is it an add-on?" Like, he's asking, like, is it like? Yes, he literally said that to me, and I was just like, and then when I was telling him, like, "No, he can't touch it," he was like, "Come on, like, what's the problem?" Like, that literally happened to me, and I was just like, "What the fuck?" Yes.
Do you think it was malicious intent or just like ignorance?
It was pure ignorance. And I don't understand why he was getting offended when I told him that he couldn't touch my hair. That made me angry, but I think it was mainly just blatant ignorance. On why he thought that he had. I just don't understand why he felt that he was entitled to touch my hair. I don't know why he was getting mad that I wouldn't let him do it. Like, I don't know you. Like, no, don't touch me.
That's such a weird request. Anyway, like, I've never asked a woman to touch her hair.
It's a weird request, especially if you don't know somebody. It's very weird. it's a
I
very
don't want
weird
your
thing to
hands
ask.
been.
Exactly.
Next is I am heterosexual. Okay, yeah, I can definitely see where that privilege would be. I have never lied about my sexuality. I haven't, and
I have not either.
I can see why. So these next couple, I understand. I never had to come out. Totally get it. I never doubted my parents' acceptance of my sexuality. Totally get it. I've never been called a fag. Totally get it. I've never been called a dyke. Oh, I have never been called dyke. Totally get it. I've never been called a fairy or any other derogatory slur for homosexuals. Totally get it. I have never tried to hide my sexuality. Totally get it. I'm always comfortable with PDA with my partner in public. I had to read that 3 times before I realized what they were talking about.
I don't understand how that makes you more privileged if you're not comfortable with PDA, though. That doesn't.
That's what I was thinking about. But when you view it through the previous questions,
yes, do the previous questions, yes. So if
yeah.
you're still in that category, but if you're a heterosexual and you're not comfortable with PDA versus
I don't
doesn't make you more privileged than somebody else who's not.
Yes, exactly. That could be like a personality type. I have never presented to be quote just friends with my significant other. Once again, in the context of what was asked earlier, I totally get it. I have never been ostracized by my religion for my sexual orientation. Totally get it.
Yep.
I have never been told I would, quote, burn in hell for my sexual orientation. Totally get it.
Yep.
I have never been told that my sexuality is, quote, just a phase. Totally get it. I have never been violently threatened because of my sexuality. Totally get it. Yep. I'm a man. I get it. I push back on it, but I get it. I feel comfortable in the gender I was born as. I get this 50%.
Wait. Okay. Explain.
This is clearly like a trans question.
Yes.
But once again, trans people make up such a small percent of the population. The overwhelming majority of us feel comfortable in the gender that we're born in. And so this I will put in the category where these people are underprivileged, but it doesn't mean that I'm privileged. Like, what privilege do I get because I feel like the gender that I was born as?
I mean, I understand what you're saying, but yes, they do make up a small population, but they do have to, the trans community has an overwhelmingly difficult time when it comes to certain things in society and like trying to fit into certain boxes of society. So, I mean, I understand where, but you also said that you understand 50%. So I understand
totally get
as well,
totally get.
But yeah.
I still identify as the gender I was born in. I get it. I have never tried to change my gender. Totally get it. I have never been denied an opportunity because of my gender. I make more money than my professional counterparts of a different gender. Now, this question I was definitely heated about because, once again, this perpetuates the awful study where they compare all the money men make to all the money women make. That is totally a dishonest way to look at pay discrepancies. In fact, Shannon, you don't know this, or you might know this, but most people don't know this. The pay gap amongst women is larger than the pay gap between men and women. So there's something y'all to remember, ladies, because these white holes out there playing y'all. I have never felt unsafe because of my gender. Totally get it. I've never been catcalled. This is a real thing. I've never been sexually harassed or assaulted. A real thing. I've never been raped. A real thing. Though people will be shocked to know that men are actually raped just as much as women are, statistically speaking.
I'm not surprised by that.
I was stunned.
Were you?
Yes. You don't think about dudes getting raped?
I mean, you don't think about it, but it happens. And I feel bad because if a man was sexually harassed or raped, like his claims are not going to be looked at as seriously.
Time out. Don't conflate those two. I definitely know men that have been sexually harassed or assaulted. I happen to be one of them. But that is different than being raped.
So if a man has been raped.
Anally raped.
If a man has been raped.
Yes.
His rape claim, I feel like in the society, which is very sad, will not get looked at as seriously as a woman's claim to rape, which is, yes.
Totally agree. Totally agree there. Not going to push back. Let's go to, what is it? Oh, I work in a salaried job. I mean, I guess that's a privilege. You know, it could also just be me working hard, but whatever. My family and I have never lived below the poverty line. That's class. Totally get it. I don't have any student loans. Such a stupid question.
I agree.
I've never gone to bed hungry. Privilege. Yep. I've never been homeless. Privilege. My parents pay some of my bills. You know, okay.
That's a privilege, I think.
I mean, is it? Did we ask to be here?
What? What does that have to do with it?
I'm just saying. I wouldn't have no bills if you didn't decide to bring me to this world.
All right, that's besides the point, Jabia. I think if your parents agree to pay your bills, that's definitely a privilege that not everyone has.
Fair enough.
Especially the next one. If they pay all of your bills, that's definitely a privilege that not everyone has.
I totally agree. Totally agree. I don't rely on public transportation. You know how I feel about that. Yes. I buy new clothes at least once a month. I mean, some people just don't like buying clothes.
Yeah, I don't. What if you don't need clothes once a month? Then yes.
Yeah, you know, I have never done my taxes myself. I get where this question is going. It's alluding to the fact that if you have a tax person, you can afford to have a tax person. So you are probably in a different class. So I get it. I have never felt poor.
These are all class questions.
Yes. I have never had to worry about making rent. I have never worked as a waiter, barista, bartender, or salesperson.
I feel like this is a weird question because as a teenager, you're most likely to work in one of these jobs. It doesn't necessarily make you less privileged than somebody. I mean, I guess it makes you a little less privileged than someone who doesn't have to work a job at all, like as a teenager, because of funding from your parents or whatever, things like that. So
there's a lot of questions left. I ain't gonna read all of them. I'm gonna read the ones that I think are like hogwash.
Oh my God, there's so many left. Wow.
I didn't realize it. I have never been shamed for my body type. That is not privilege, man.
Look, that's not privilege. It's not.
Yeah, everyone is now. Do I believe that there's a universal standard of ugly? I do. But that said, I mean, you're not somebody's cup of tea. There are 6 billion people in the world. But
that's not what the question's saying, though. That's not what the question's saying. Just because it's not saying that. It's not saying.
I've never been shamed. But Shannon, if I say I don't like skinny girls, I'm shaming skinny girls. Right?
That's your preference, though. But then there are people. I don't consider that shaming them.
So what's shaming? So what's shaming then?
I guess shaming is just like you're outwardly like, I guess making fun of somebody for their body type. Like if I say that I don't like big dudes, which is not true by the way, but I'm just giving an example. If I'm saying
you heard that, fellas. You heard that, fellas.
I said it's not true. But if I said that I don't like big dudes, that's not me shaming big dudes. That's just my personal preference. But if I go to your face and like, no one will ever like you because you're big, that's body shaming. That's different. I feel like that's different.
Yo, this woman made me laugh and I feel bad about it. I am not nervous in airport security lines.
Why did that make you laugh?
I know they talk about Muslims, right? I know they talk about Muslims.
I have a friend. So one of my close friends is half Italian and half Pakistani, but she is white passing, but she has a very, very, very like Pakistani name. Like you can tell. So but she's white passing. So every time that somebody takes her passport, she always, always, always gets pulled over to the side after people like see her passport and see what her name is all the time. Every time she gets on a flight. So I feel bad about that.
That was one. It was one. This one here. I have never been told I'm overweight or too skinny. If you have been told either of those things, it doesn't mean that there's somebody else.
I see what you're trying to say. That's not like a privilege box.
You might be overweight and you might be too skinny. Somebody could be like, hey man, you put them a couple of pounds, man. You should kind of drop that.
Yeah. That's not like a privilege box. That's like a whole issue about body shaming, but I don't think that has anything to do with privilege.
Yeah. And so those were just like some examples of some that I found, to be annoying because making everything into this tower of privileges and where do you land on the scale? I think there's more harm than good. I think it divides people more than it needs to because, like I said, I think the real issue with this country is class and people's access to money and the things money can provide. And I think they use all these little boxes to keep us fighting amongst ourselves.
What about this? Wait. What about this one? Sorry, this is another one that I didn't really get. I've used prescription drugs recreationally. I don't really get that one and how that.
So here's what I think they're asking. You can get a in certain states you can get a medical not excuse, but a doctor could recommend that you use marijuana for medical purposes.
But they said prescription drugs though. Does that count as? Oh, never
it
mind.
would be.
I thought they were talking about like pills.
Well, I mean, they could. For example, if your doctor prescribes oxycodone to you.
Oh, okay. Yes.
You can get your high on legally. Versus if you don't have a medical reason to need oxycodone, the only way you get in your hands on oxycodone is through these streets.
Yeah.
And so there is once again, I want to talk about that. I would never have any conversation about making better public policy so that poor people don't have to break the law to get high. I would never use privilege to have that conversation. I guess that's what I mean. That word just makes these conversations a lot more toxic and unhelpful. In my opinion, I think the conversation would be a lot more productive if we just removed that word and just got out of this underprivileged mind frame.
I agree.
Yeah. So that's our hour, Shannon.
An hour, the stupid Buzzfeed quiz. Yes.
That's an hour. Yeah. Now you should still take the Buzzfeed quiz, I think, just to see how you might be viewed in the eyes of somebody who does share this view. Like people that view the world through like this privileged glasses, they're not going to hear anything you have to say if they think you are a privileged person. So some people, the fact that I got a 65, they're not going to listen to this podcast. Yeah. Oh yeah, easy for you to say, you privileged bastard. Like there's some people in the world like that. So I think it's worth taking just to see how they view you, and then you can compare it to how you view yourself. Because I don't feel privileged. I do not feel like I am 65 points out of 100 privileged. I'm 26. I'll be 27 at the end of this month. I live with my parents.
Me too.
No, again, I'm just saying. I don't view myself as some. I'm single. I don't view myself as some privileged dude. But I got a 65 on that test.
Yeah.
Now, are there people whose lives are worse? Of course. I walk by them all the time in the street. But just because their lives are worse doesn't mean I view my life as privileged. And that's kind of where I want to, end this. So
yes. Excellent point. I agree with most of your points. See, this is good. This
was a stressful leaving conversation for me. That article they gave me an aneurysm. But look, take the test. Take the test. If you agree, disagree, I totally get it. You don't hold it against us. Make sure you follow us on our social media handles.
Yes.
All the information is in the show notes. The email to the podcast, links to the article I put in the show notes as well. So, all the information is provided to you. Anything you want to say, Shannon, before we get out of here?
Let us know if you want us to talk about anything specific.
Yes. That's
Leave
a good point.
Comments.
Yes, that's a good point. So definitely email us, or you can tweet. Shannon's not on Twitter. You can tweet. You can tweet me, or you can tweet the podcast with any topic ideas that you have. I don't know what we're going to be talking about next Monday. Shannon has to pick these out. Go ahead, Shannon.
Okay. No. I'll say that after this.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So the next discussion podcast will be next Monday, but don't miss the news portion on Friday. A lot of news as we get closer to this election. All right. So thank you for listening to us. I hope you all have a wonderful week. So until next time, deuces.
Bye.